Let's call the order. This is going to be City Council meeting for City of Port Richey, Tuesday, May 24th. At this time, I'd like to stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Mayor Scott Tremblay.
Here.
Vice Mayor Tom Kinsella.
Here.
Councilman Tom McClary.
Here.
Councilwoman Linda Rodriguez.
Here.
Councilman Bill Colombo.
Here.
City Attorney James Matthew.
Here.
City Manager John Duke.
Here. Looking for a motion to approve council minutes.
Motion to approve council minutes.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
This time we're going to open up to comments from the general public. Nobody has signed up, so I see a show of hands though, so we'll start with Mr. Mueller.
Dave Miller, 5439 Blue Point Drive. In the absence of Mr. Lord, I don't mind giving an invocation. Heavenly Father, I just ask that the wisdom be granted to these members of council. I ask that your power run strong in this community, and I pray that the Holy Spirit will take hold of this community and let you reign and rule. Father, I pray for each and every member of the council, the mayor, the city manager, the administrations, fire, and police. Lord, I just ask you to bless this city, protect us in all we do, provide wisdom to the membership here, and give you glory and honor in Jesus' name. Amen.
Would anyone else like to speak? Seeing no hands, we're going to move on to comments from our city manager. I'm going to welcome Mr. Duke to speak at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The fishing pier engineering analysis is still in progress. Still expecting to have that soon, but don't have date certain. We just want to let you know that's hasn't been received yet. Here at City Hall, we've spent the last couple of days interviewing candidates for our IT position. Christina decided to make a change, and so we miss her, wish her well, but we're now in the hunt. We've had 5 really solid candidates and gotten 2 of those interviewed. Update on the Cote River Landing project. Ayers Engineering and I have been in communication. They have a number of design type questions that, in my opinion, need to come to council for decision making. I'm glad to pick what type of concrete, what color and all that, but it's really your decision as the city's caretaker. So at some point, I think we need to set a time and a place either for a work session or we've probably got an hour or so of conversation. If you want to put it on council meeting, the next council meeting, which is the 14th, that does push it out 3 weeks. We've got a 3-week stretch between now and our next council meeting. So be happy to put it on as a work session next week if you'd like. Monday's a holiday. Tuesday would be our first day back in City Hall. But there's some decisions to work through, including some size on sidewalk. Do we want it 10 feet wide and less parking, or 4 feet wide, more narrow for pedestrians but more parking? So those kinds of things I'd like for you all to wrestle with and give Ayers guidance on. So either we put it off 3 weeks and take an hour or so in a council meeting, or we put a work session together, obviously at a time that's convenient for your schedules.
Can I interrupt you?
Yes,
so
sir.
we can address that real quick?
Please.
That's going to probably require some kind of decision here. So I'm open either way, but I think my attention span's normally fairly low. So I think a workshop may be better if we know we're going to be speaking for a full hour. And I wanted to know what your guys' opinion is.
I agree. I like the idea of the workshop. I'm hoping that at a workshop we'll be able to have input from the citizen if we're able to. But I like to see a workshop.
It would be an open meeting.
I like to see that.
Yeah, I'd like to do it next week for sure. 3 weeks is a long way out to make decisions, so yes.
I would just point out, we really can't make decisions at workshops, so we'd have to do a special meeting. A workshop, by definition, if we could just we can talk stuff over, but we can't make decisions.
That begs the question, is there anything that we're gonna have to vote on, or is it just by consensus, what kind of?
Yeah, decision. I don't believe, Jim, that's all correct, but you can make the whole list and just bring it to the council meeting and say what we discussed at the workshop, we're gonna proceed with all those decisions, whatever. At that particular meeting, we cannot make a decision. Well, your workshops tend to be more back and forth informational.
I'm okay with the special meeting then, if you guys wanna vote on things there. And let's advertise it to the public,
Yeah.
let's have a special
we can.
meeting.
Right, if you wanted to conclude it that day, otherwise you could just, in other words, you meet next week or the week after and decide all the things you want to do. You're just delaying the implementation of this for another 10 days, okay, on a 2-year project. Because, Mr. Dude's saying that, it's a whole hour at least of discussion. Maybe you want to bring the public into just for that, but it's up to you.
But the quicker we make these decisions, the quicker we can get moving on this
that's
project,
totally-
so. I think for our purposes, the clerk and I can put it together as a special meeting, and then if you want discussion to turn into a decision, we can make a decision.
We can do it that
Sound
way.
okay,
If you
Jim?
want to vote.
Okay, yeah. And how much time do we need to advertise that? Because you have to advertise to the public and all that, don't we?
Just like any other meeting, reasonable amount of time.
Okay. So we'll get that out in the
I
next
would say
couple of
5
days.
days, but
Tuesday, regular time, earlier? Regular time is probably good for most people, I would think. Okay.
we'll put it earlier, but I'm the odd man out on that one. I can't tell you my schedule for next Tuesday.
And I thought we were gonna have 3 weeks off. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Thanks, John.
I know there's been some concern and discussion about water main breaks. I checked with staff again this week. We're basically on track for average number of water breaks, plus the extra business that Duke continues to send us. So Richie and Sal are on top of that, working with Duke. Some of it's just unavoidable. We lay out the locates on where the pipe is. I think in one case, their bore hit a rock and went a direction they didn't expect. And so I know there's concern on Facebook about, are we doing more? We have a certain number of breaks, this time of year, and that's about where we are now. We've had a number of responses to Duke's activity, and we're still working with them. So I just wanted to, it's not more than normal, but we are putting it up on Facebook to let people know. So people probably know more than we have in the past. We continue to work with property owners following the smoke test results. Staff has sent notices out to those who have not responded. City staff is working with property owners who have responded, and we've got a number of those repaired. City staff's also continues to work on the leaks that were found on city property. Some of them, it's been a matter of going out and actually looking at the map and trying to figure out whether it's on private property or on public property. So there's been some of that, but that project continues, and we're still making progress. The folks who haven't responded, we're starting to get a little more official, and hopefully we can get some response from those, but it's a relatively small number. I did have an opportunity to meet with the owner of the Seaside property and the rentor. Kind of got an idea of their plans and their progress. I asked Rob to join us this evening. Rob's our building official, and I made it clear to the Seaside folks that there's 2 people they have to satisfy. Rob is our building official. Chief Paula Castry does the fire inspections, and if they satisfy those 2 gentlemen, that's what they have to move forward. So had an hour conversation with them that went well, but just wanted to make sure the city staff and the folks who are putting that business together are all on the same page. So my basic encouragement to them was bring my staff along, make sure that Rob and Chief know what you're doing, and if you make changes in the plan, keep them up to speed, because those 2 guys are going to follow their rule book, and once they're satisfied, then we'll move forward. So I did ask Rob to be here this evening in case there were more detailed questions. I didn't want to make up answers, but Rob has all of the details of where we are. I know the Seaside owners were in yesterday after my meeting to pick up a couple of permits that we require. And so my sense is they're trying to follow the rules and working with staff. So wanted to make that available to you and kind of bring you up to speed. Wanted to thank and congratulate Chief Robinson on the swearing in of our new canine. Had a nice ceremony this week here at City Hall, but I assume Canine is on duty and
Yes, yes.
serving the people of Port Richey, so that's exciting. Already mentioned, the next council meeting is June 14th, pending a special council meeting next week. So that's a 3-week break that we just couldn't let go by apparently without putting a special meeting in there. Monday is a city holiday. We'll have City Hall closed. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Stand for your questions.
I'm going to start with my right, with our Vice Mayor. Vice Mayor
Not
Kinsella.
at this time, thank you.
No questions.
The only thing I might point out is I saw somewhere an advertisement of an actual event opening at Seaside, like they've already got it scheduled. Did you discuss it with them?
I did not. I've seen some of the same announcements. Obviously, they aren't in business until they have all of the checkoffs. So we did talk about some of their previous, they were hoping to have a soft opening. They didn't get that accomplished. But I think they're pretty clear they can't go into business until they've actually, at the very least, satisfied those two gentlemen. So I know they're anxious to get started. They were really complimentary of the community. They've had a lot of community interest, a lot of community support. People want the business open, want to go reminisce like they did in years past. So they're excited about it, but I'm pretty comfortable they know they can't go into business until it.
I'd like to congratulate our new canine officer. That's wonderful. I'm sorry I couldn't make it. I was working. So that's all. Thank you.
I believe that closes out comments from our city management, and then we're going to open comments from council. I'm going to start again, our Vice Mayor.
I have nothing.
I had 2 issues that I wanted to raise. The first is, I think by consensus, several months ago, we agreed to view all the big ticket items and kind of talk about them before the budget season comes to give direction for really our finance department in putting together the budget. And I think we've talked about the police department, we've talked about utilities and some of the other departments. The only big department that I don't think we've talked about is the fire department. And I was asking Mr. Dude if that means that we're not looking at any big ticket items, which is very exciting this year, or if there's just a delay in getting that information to the council.
I'm going to look to Chief to help me out. I don't think we have any big ticket items or capital kinds of purchases on the horizon.
Well, that's music to my ears, so.
He just got a new toy.
The other issue is, that I just wanted to ask about is, there's some property that's down by Limit. And has anybody applied to develop that? Do we know?
I'm not aware that we have applications. We've had conversation,
Okay.
but I don't think they are progressed far enough to be in the application phase.
And do we know around about how many units or houses that they're looking?
That, in our conversations with them, I think that's still in flux. The previous plan that was there, I think it was a PUD, but there were 700, 800 planned for 7 to 8. So that was a PUD that was approved. It's no longer valid, but that was a previous plan. I think the folks who are looking at that property now are obviously taking that into consideration, thinking something similar, but they're not progressed far enough to say, here's our plan.
Because that's, if I'm not mistaken, that's about the size of the project on Washington Street, is it not?
That's considerably larger.
So it's gonna be a larger project?
Yes, much larger.
So with that going on and then Washington, should both projects move forward, are we gonna have to reevaluate staffing for fire, police and all that? Is that gonna be part of the discussion when it comes?
Absolutely. It'd be part of the planning process to get impact statements from both departments. Probably even more importantly, we'll review the impact on our public works infrastructure, water, sewer, and stormwater.
And transportation too, because
Yes.
if I recall down there, limit going out, everything there is right-hand turn only. So if you put all those units, you're
When
gonna,
you can, coming northbound on 19, you can turn in, leaving Limit, yeah, I think you can only go south similar to, Cedar.
so if you have that many units going in, we're probably gonna have to look at transportation and, you know,
Wear and tear on roads with the equipment going in and
Correct.
out. I mean, that's a substantial project.
Yeah, so those are conversations that we've started with the developer, not only Limit, but Olsner, Limit in 19. And so they're aware of that.
Okay, and then the reason I was asking you is because I saw Rob sitting here, so if there was application or any talk, I figured it was a good time to ask.
Yeah, we're not that far.
Okay. All right, and I believe that's all that I had. I was gonna pass it over to Mr. Colombo. Mr. Rodriguez.
So let me just add one little thing. You were talking about the various departments and discussing them individually as far as cost. I'm sorry. You were speaking of the various departments and cost. I would also expect we'd probably have at least one section devoted to capital projects in and of themselves, not department specific, but actual capital projects.
Right, that is coming.
Yeah, okay.
I've heard from council, that's something you want to discuss, and so we'll bring those lists back and go through the prioritization again, and how we're gonna fund them.
A lot of discussion, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
If I can ask you one other thing, I know that I missed MPO meeting. I think you attended. Was there anything noteworthy? As
relates to us, no. Their primary focus was on their 30-year plan, which is very east side. My only discussion at that point was, you know, thanks for all your attention. Now let's start talking about hooking it up to the west side and again, yeah, that's the point. It primarily focus was their 30-year plan, rapid transit from the east side into Tampa, whole bedroom community stuff. So they never did touch on any of the subjects like the under the bridge or the pedestrian, any of that. So none of it was discussed.
the issue that you're talking about, I think, is going to be on the next council meeting, if I'm not mistaken. So we'll address that issue. And then Ms. Rodriguez.
I'm good right now, thank you.
All right. So that closes out comments from our council. We're going to open up. Are there any comments from any boards or committees this evening? Seeing none, we're going to move on to the consent agenda, looking for a motion.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Motion passes. We're going to move on to council business. The first item that I had for council business is the Chapel Avenue lift station pump purchase request, and I'm going to pass that to Mr. Duke for introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The request is to replace 2 lift station pumps at Chapel Avenue. Pumps are requesting, city staff are requesting to increase the size of those pumps based on development on that side of the community. The funding source would be utility impact fees, and you can see the purchase request information in your packet. So would request a motion to approve the purchase of the 2 Chapel Avenue lift station pumps, total $18,596.
Open up for discussion and or motion.
Mr. Duke, you mentioned obviously it's in your impact fee. I'm drawing the assumption that the impact fees paid by that development are covering this cost.
Yes, and impact fees have been paid.
Okay. Yeah, and one other question I have just out of curiosity, since we are replacing pumps, the value of the pumps we're replacing, are they still in good shape? Can we use them elsewhere? That really has no bearing on whether we vote for this or not. This is just out of curiosity question.
I'd have to ask Sal. My assumption is they're worn out, but I better ask Sal to clarify.
Those pumps, I mean, those pumps will be kept. If we can apply them anywhere else, of course, we can use them.
Yeah, backup.
Yeah, of course, yeah. They'll
Yeah, I
just,
mean, if
they'll
we
be
can-
included in inventory along with the other pumps.
We can do a bit of rehab on them, and we've got value, they're sitting there, and if you need a pump, you.
We have other lift stations that have 15 horsepower pumps, so they'll just be used in case those other lift stations went down.
Oh, very good, thank you, that's all.
And the only question that I had is, it's not a budgeted item out of our normal general fund. Was this budgeted at all, or is this just straight out of impact fees and we're just gonna replace them?
Impact fees.
Okay, and we have plenty of money? Yeah, in our impact there, okay.
Yeah, that was my question,
Right.
they pay the impact fees, to cover this, and it's their presence that's causing us to upgrade.
Yes. But that doesn't mean we didn't spend it elsewhere, so. it's-
Well, one would hope we did, but, by and large, the whole concept behind an impact fee is it's a fee to cover the impact of what you're doing, so.
No, I understand.
That was my major question was, yes, it's being paid out of impact fees, my question was specifically, did they pay enough impact fees as a development to cover this purchase?
Yes. And my question is, we haven't spent it elsewhere, and the answer is no, so.
Well, which is good, I'm glad to hear.
Any other questions, comments, or we're ready for a motion?
Glad we got the 5-year warranty.
Motion to approve the 2 Chapel Avenue lift stage pumps for $18,596.
I'll say.
He seconded.
We have a motion and a second. I'm going to open it up to the general public, since we have a motion and a second on an action item, for any commentary. By show of hands, seeing no hands, let's put it to a vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. That puts us to our next item up, which is going to be a crane purchase. It says for 2007 F-550 utility sewer vehicle. I'm going to pass that to Mr. Dude for introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The existing crane that we have on a truck, the crane is 15 years old. It is in need of regular and expensive repair. Right now, it's sitting inoperable, in need of about $10,000 worth of repair. That is an option for us. We put 10 grand into a 15-year-old crane and put it back on the truck and put it into service. Made sense to us that for $16,000 we buy a new crane, put it on the truck. We do have a crane truck on order. You've already approved that. Last we checked with the manufacturer, they've not issued a VIN number for the truck, which means it hasn't started being constructed. The truck isn't even under construction. And you can see in the documentation that we've included in the packet, we've asked them several times, where are we? And their answer is, give us a call in 2 months. And this is a piece of equipment that Public Works uses virtually every day. When we pull a pump to do maintenance on it, this is the piece of equipment that we use. So right now, we're renting a pump, we're renting a crane to pull pumps when we're doing pump maintenance. That runs us about $300 an hour. We try to be efficient, but that's putting our bills at about $1,000 a day. We're using it 3 or 4 times a week. It's easy math. In about 2 or 3 weeks, we've spent the same amount we would have spent on a new crane. So I thought the best option was buy a new crane, put it on the truck, use it until the new crane truck comes in, and then we've got either a great backup or a relatively saleable piece of equipment. So it just doesn't make sense to me to put another 10 grand into a 15-year-old piece of equipment. And I really am tired of signing $1,000 invoices to the rental company. So would request a motion to approve purchase of the crane.
Thank you, Mr. Good. I'm going to open up for discussion and or motion.
I have a question on the condition of the vehicle this crane is going on, being done 2007. Is the vehicle worthy?
It functions, but like any 15-year-old piece of equipment, That's why we asked for and got approval to purchase a new truck and crane, which is being built. But could be 6 months, could be a year before we get that. So
My only concern,
right now, that truck is serviceable.
my only concern is putting this crane on the truck, and the truck comes inoperable. It's just gonna sit there as a waste of our money. So I'm just curious of what the condition of that truck is.
I was going to comment on that because my thought was the same, and I think the only logical thing to do if we had to do this would be to buy the crane and then just resell it once the new one's built, because the vehicle's not going to support the crane for more than a year or two anyways.
Right.
And the question is, do we know if we buy a new crane, if you can resell it and get most of your money back? Do we know that?
I don't know that, but that would seem like a reasonable assumption. Maybe Sal does.
But even if it takes 8 weeks to get at $1,000 a week, that's,
I can't stop pulling pumps.
yeah, it's the cost of the crane. So after 8 weeks, the crane pays for itself.
Correct.
But the new crane is not suitable for use on the new crane truck?
No, the crane and the truck come together. We're buying both.
So this is an additional crane which we won't need when we get the new crane in the truck.
Correct. But like I said, it's either a great backup or a very saleable piece of equipment.
Unless you keep the old truck with the new crane on it as a backup.
Well, I mean, of course, another question would be, I don't know our entire fleet, is there another truck we could use this crane on? As opposed to putting it out behind Public Works and putting a tarp over it.
One way or the other, the crane has a great resale value. I've already been offered for the auto crane, the 15-year-old one that's already on there. I mean, they can use it for parts and stuff. You know, the resale value of the new crane is without question. We're on our way right now with a rental company for rent a crane truck, so I don't have to be using a vendor. But we're on several waiting lists and have no idea when that's going to happen. The vendor, the math we gave you is correct as far as like how much we're paying, daily for that. But it's more expensive if we went ahead and if I in a year or two wanted to get another 550, and we can put that crane on it. One way or the other, either keeping the crane and buying another vehicle in a couple of years, so I have 2 vehicles in the fleet is probably the best option we have. So I have a backup. The current 2007, it is an older vehicle, but I have no major mechanical issues with it right now. It is an older vehicle, and this is why we asked for a new one for this instance, not only for the truck, but for the older crane. So one way or the other, we'll definitely get resale value for it. Either I come to council a couple of years from now and asking for another 550 so we can put this newer crane on it, and I only have to get a truck, which is going to be much, much less than buying a truck with a crane. The truck and crane purchase, I believe at the time was over, I don't remember, do you remember how much that was? I know, yeah, it was between 85 and 100,000, but it's going to be much less. But was it 125? Yeah. It was 125, I'm sorry. So.
Yeah, I was gonna say, that sounds low, yeah.
Yeah, it was 120, so I apologize, but it was 125 for the crane, for the new crane truck. Looking for a 550, even if you wanted to get, if this 2007 does break down, I would keep the crane and look for another 550, even if it was a used one, a few years old, whatnot, so then I would have 2 vehicles in the fleet. There's several options I think that we can explore.
Yeah, this is out of my wheelhouse too, but Sal, is there any potential for mounting a crane on a trailer tow behind with, stabilizing legs? Is the city potentially in situations sometimes where in a lot of construction projects, it is the case where having more than one crane helps you accomplish your task?
In this particular area, I mean, me and Rich, you talked about using different types of cranes, and of course there are other, kinds of cranes out there, but the mobility and the function of a crane truck, which is used by sewer companies or any utility companies, is just the practical use, the position of the vehicle, getting as close to a lift station as possible, angling that crane over the lift station and pulling the pump, along the risers. That's the most difficult thing. Putting the crane on a trailer, you may not be able to position that trailer as well as backing in one.
I didn't necessarily mean as a substitution for a crane truck, just a way to use the trailer, the way to potentially use this crane if we find ourselves with the new crane and possibly not having another use for it. It was really just a curiosity. It's out of my wheelhouse. That's why I asked you.
I'm open, like I said, we can explore several options.
Okay.
I'm not, like I said, I'm not gonna say no to any application until we explore it, so I'm not gonna say no to nothing. We can definitely explore other options. Maybe I can put this crane on a different type of, it doesn't have to be a 550.
Right.
I could probably put it on a 350 or whatnot. I'd like to talk to people who've mounted them before. Basically, even with the 550, it just requires, a special mounting bracket that goes on there to support the weight of what you're pulling as well as the weight of the crane. So I'm sure that type of hookup and setup can be applied to another vehicle. It doesn't necessarily have to be the 550. The 550 at the time is the normal vehicle that other companies have used. This is why we went with another one. It's what we've already had, so we went with the same vehicle when we ordered the crane truck. But I'm not going to say that we can't explore other options as far as another vehicle. I'm sure there's other ways we can do that.
Is there any expectation or even possibility that we're gonna get the new crane truck in 8 weeks?
I've included the emails from Duval Ford that we purchased the crane truck for. She wants the sales rep told me to reach back out in June or July. The vehicle has to be issued a VIN number first in order for the plant to start building it. They're all issued VIN numbers and then they start to build. And then the build can be, months out. So, we ordered this vehicle in November as soon as council approved it, but we're still waiting on that and the two pickup trucks that we ordered as well.
And right now, we are carrying $1,000 a month in rental cost, and we will probably be carrying $1,000 a month in rental cost for the next 8 weeks.
It's $1,000 a day.
$1,000 a day.
It's actually, I included it in an
How much
invoice.
a week would we be burning if we were renting? Rough numbers.
Anywhere between $2,000 to $5,000 a week.
Motion to purchase the crane.
We have a motion and a second. I'm going to open it up to the general public beforehand for any commentary by hands, show of hands. Seeing no hands at this time. The only other issue is that I wanted to ask before we vote is this a non-budgeted item?
We have money in our budget to pay for the site. The line item with capital outlay is within our budget. We have money in there to purchase that item.
And which budget are we talking about?
Utility fund.
Okay, so this is coming out of the utility fund and it's a budgeted item.
Yes.
It's a budgeted amount. We didn't specifically
It's in
say
a line item.
crane.
So it's coming out of our reserves is really where it's coming from.
No.
No.
We have budget in that capital project line.
Okay, so there's plenty of money in that line item.
Yeah, we have money budgeted to purchase it. That's, not a special purchase or an extra purchase. There's money budgeted for this.
Okay, that's the only question I have. Are you guys ready to vote? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. We're going to move on to item 5, which is a road paving assessment by Public Works. And I'm going to pass that to Mr. Dew.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You as the council had asked for staff to look into the possibility of doing a road assessment, a street survey. Started down that path and started reaching out to a number of engineering firms that are in that business and have that capacity. In that process, we learned that our iWorks vendor is also provides that service. That's a function of or a portion of their business. We got a number from them. They sent us a proposal, and there's some pictures and other things in there. So because it's a vendor we already have, it basically is an extension of the service they're providing for us. I would like to fund that with ARPA funds, because ARPA funds are then going to be used for street work beyond that. So that's why I bring it to you. I'm not spending ARPA funds without you knowing about it. But iWorks will do the street survey. They've got examples of what they actually provide. They'll not only assess the street, but they'll GPS the fire hydrants and the street signs and the valves and a number of other structures when they do the assessment. So wanted to bring that to you for your consideration, and would request a motion to approve the road paving assessment by iWorks.
Would this be the first time this has ever been done? Do we have anything? Is this replacing another document? Or is this the first time?
I'm not aware of another street survey. Sal's our local historian.
No, to my knowledge, I don't think the city has ever done an extensive, we're talking over 19 and a half miles of mapping. Nothing this extensive has ever been done, in my experience.
Thank you.
We've only done it specifically for the waterfront overlay district. I think when we did the traffic pattern, but that was it from what I'm aware. The only question that I have is, you have $13,000, which sounds like a reasonable price, but is there any basis for comparison to whether or not that's a normal, that the price is competitive to what others would be charging in the market?
I'd ask Sal if you had any other.
I've been in the talks with other engineering firms, and this is anywhere from $40,000 to $50,000 and up study. Especially the difference with another engineering firm doing that, will we get a piece of paper assessing all our a report assessing all our reports from another company? Yes, but the exclusive with this particular program that the city already adopted, we can also build upon this. And once again, they're also including our entire street sign network, our entire hydrant network, and then the fact that you can also every time a street is done, you add it to the program and say when that was completed. And this is 100% integrated with the program we already have. Any information I'm going to receive from another engineering firm isn't going to guarantee that. This guarantees that 100%. And plus, like I said, you'll be able to make changes and add to it as years go on. As the city makes improvements to the infrastructure, we can add that to the program. So there won't be any necessary to keep going out and doing further studies unless you wanted to do it again. Like they say, their average time is every 3 to 5 years. Check the streets again. But as we make changes, we'll be able to implement that into the program.
The only other question I have is, how does this interplay with Arizona Engineering? Because I think they're looking at the roads down in the waterfront overlay district, so I don't know if there's interplay between the two. I don't want to get 2 studies for one area. In other words, if Ayers is doing a study already for the waterfront area, is that going to be excluded out of this, or? Well,
this was including like I said, the entire 19 and a half mile network. So yes, this is also including doing the Cody River Landing area. But if you really measure out those streets, it's a fraction of what the entire other network is. So it's just going to be included in that. We did not, told not to include the few streets that are, encompassed in that area. They're going to do that as well. And I mean, we can always compare oranges to, with errors to this one as well when that comes out.
Yeah, we'll have Aaron's here next Tuesday, so we can tell Chris we don't want him to double up on our work.
Well, I don't know if we want to do that, because Ayers has taken into consideration all the changes. And they've already done survey. I know there's been survey trucks out there from what I hear from the businesses and the residents out there. So there's been survey trucks and they've done a lot of work already. So I'm not suggesting, I'm opposed to it being doubled up, but I think that the purpose of this survey versus what they're doing in terms of the waterfront overlay district are going to be, the purposes are going to be different.
The purposes and the breadth, the scope of what we're doing. iWorks is much more comprehensive. And obviously we'll share those results with Ayers. They're nowhere near being ready to do street survey for the work that they're going to do. But obviously once we have the street survey, then we've got that information available to share with Ayers.
Best Ayers. That's all that I have.
Motion to approve purchase of the road paving assessment by Public Works for $13,000.
Second.
Before we vote, by show of hands, anyone from the general public? Seeing no hands, put it to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. That closes out our business to come before council. So we're going to move on to old business. And I see some notes here by Mr. Dude. So I'm going to pass old business to Mr. Dude just to touch on some of these.
A couple of these I've already talked about. We've discussed with the owners of the Seaside property our concerns, our status, their status. Rob is here if you have additional questions for him. I think I mentioned the Limestone Drive Pier in my report. We're still waiting for the final analysis from the engineering firm. And Clark Moody Boulevard is still in review. We did get the property assessment done from the title company, and so that's back in our hands and continuing to move forward on that.
I'll start to my left this time. Councilwoman Rodriguez.
There was a big discussion with Seaside last time, obviously, so kind of wanted to just continue that, get an update more specific. One of our concerns last time was the parking, so can you educate me?
Okay, we're gonna go through a little timeline. I think we can do like a little education from start to finish about the whole Seaside, not just isolating pieces and parts. That way, when we're spending our time efficiently tonight, we kind of get a good grip on what's really going on over there in a timeline. Came on board last year, knowing that the Seaside Motel that was there went into a slum and blight. We implemented some board up and clean up the property, established a timeline to demolish or put that into a slum and blight, or get it up, to at least get the property cleaned up and get it presentable from the street. They indicated that there's some different sales and arm's length deals that were going on back and forth. They came to us, educated us on what they were doing. Several meetings with Mr. Duke, myself and the staff and Veronica were in that meeting. As that property progressed, they began to do other things, like they sold the business to a little bar and restaurant, so they say bar restaurant. To my knowledge, it was just a bar, beer and wine license. The new owners came in, cleaning up the property, painting, minor things. Went into a situation where we saw them building some stairs there without a permit. Went there, did a stop work order on that. That was one of the events that took place. Another one was visiting the property with fire. As things progressed, very dynamic to what they were doing with the state and what they were telling Veronica. So Veronica inadvertently said, I don't know anything about a kitchen. Well, Veronica didn't, because they said, we're not doing anything upstairs. They told Veronica with the BTR, business tax receipt, we're not doing anything upstairs, nothing going on. Unbeknownst to me, I go up the stairs, the new stairs that are going up. What are you doing in the kitchen? We're just cleaning it up. Well, you didn't tell us about a kitchen or a restaurant. I then investigated with the state of Florida, found out with DBPR, they are applying for a 4 COP license, which is a restaurant bar combination, which would trigger extra parking. Never informed the city of that. Maybe dealing directly with the state. We caught wind of that, started addressing it. As you take a beer and wine license to COP, very simple, no food, beer and wine, easy to get a license. 4 COP, you're required to have 150 seats or more to get the free liquor license. So what these businesses do, they try to add seats, don't tell the city, apply to the state, never inform us. Then me as a person that built about 300 restaurants and work all up and down the coast, doing commercial inspections on nothing but hotels, restaurants, hotels, up and down St. Pete Beach to Indian Rocks, Dunedin, Tarpon Springs, here, Newport Richey. I do this every day. So I know some of the caveats to how these guys try to skirt the system and not tell us what they're doing. I've ran into the same situation where they want a free $300,000 liquor license without paying for it. Get a 4 COP license. We're doing 51% food sales. I don't see them in that kitchen, even if they get it up to snuff, doing that.
the parking agreement would extend the 150 seats versus whatever they have there now, and they would need a local sharing parking agreement, even though they own both properties, they have to make an agreement with themselves because they're separate parcels. They cannot do the parking they want with what they have there now without doing a unity of title. That would be a legal portion where they would join the properties together or have a shared parking. And, you know, we're eventually gonna have them tear down the hotel. So there's a little dynamics there. So I'm just trying to get you guys up to par. So what I've been dealing with, they bounce around the city, going to fire, going to building, going to Veronica, trying to get the right answer. Time out. We're gonna get fire, code, Veronica, John Duke, city manager, myself. There's gonna be no more playing Russian roulette and playing the tournaments against each other. So I put a kibosh on that, had a meeting with them. They came in with John, we met again. We've met, I believe, 3 or 4 times now. And we've got them back in order. So there's not gonna be any more shenanigans, as I would say, with what they're trying to do there. The buck stops here, is what I'm trying to tell you. So we've got it under control. John's fully updated about what we're doing. I just wanted to get you, the staff, and council updated about what we're doing there. So I think we got it under control. So, if there's any questions, please feel to ask, because I've got it.
I'm just looking for this stuff to get to a point where all of a sudden they're coming back to us and looking for a variance, because I don't see there's gonna be any basis for a variance, so.
Bill, that'd be a self-imposed variance, so it'd have to be hard for them to not,
That's my
with
point.
the water
You can't
over
cause- You can't cause your own hardship.
correct. That would be a self-imposed hardship. And also, regardless of that hardship, they would still need that shared parking agreement with the WOD and C2. There's no way to get around that. We would just have them go through the system that's in place. There's no need for a variance. Just a parking agreement that has to get approved by council in accordance with the water overlay district. So that's what I'd recommend, so.
For the parking, assuming they go either with unity of title or shared parking agreement, wouldn't they have to go back with site plan approval for a parking lot?
100%.
So this would be a full site plan review then?
Site plan review. Change of use within a use. It's the same use in A2 according to the building code. Some of the things that might be triggered with a bar, which is, they have a nightclub stage in there. 100 seats or more is going to require fire sprinkler, fire alarm. We're gonna have to re-update the whole kitchen, a full site plan, full kitchen update, architectural review, a lot.
And they're aware of all of the site plan review, approval, and the time frame. They're aware of all of that.
They keep trying, but it's like the little train that could, they can't. I don't believe they don't understand the system enough. I just have to keep educating and putting up a roadblock, because it's not truly a roadblock, it's just the process. They don't understand the process. And Gary, myself, the fire inspector have been there. This is the process. You can't just add 150 seats to 47 seats and reinvent the wheels.
That was one of my questions. What was the past? Unfortunately, I've never been in Seaside, so I don't know. What was the occupancy prior to?
It was an A2, which is assembly, small assembly, which is basically less than 100 seats also, because there is a nightclub stage atmosphere in there. That means it's dark. You might have a band, people drinking. Those typically, the new codes, since the station nightclub fire really got hot on that nightclub fire, so they really pushed the codes now to small nightclubs where they're shooting sparklers or something might, be going on, and people are drinking with no limited lighting. 100 occupancy is the maximum. That for kicks into sprinkler system to that type of occupancy of what they're trying to do there.
You even have enough water for a sprinkler system.
Whole other conversation.
Oh, yeah, well,
Yeah, because you need standpipes and everything.
there's a lot.
Sprinkler systems are not cheap.
Well, no, the sprinkler systems are cheap. Getting enough water to a sprinkler system can get really expensive.
And just leading the staff's recommendations, I have a lot of experience with, downtown Dunedin, Palm Bay, places I've worked that have done community redevelopment, a lot of involvement, know what needs to go on. They're thinking they can just pop the can, and it's not gonna happen. It's just not that easy what they're trying to do there.
Thank you. My concern was just for everybody's safety, that's all. So I appreciate you filling me in. Thank you.
I believe that since the staff has got together, had several meetings with fire, code enforcement, myself, city manager, all in the same loop now, and I've kind of led that charge with what's going on, because I'm firsthand knowledge of what's going on there, and it just keeps growing. So, we've got it under control. I'm confident we're 100% as a city got it under control, and we're in constant conversation with the client. And we're business friendly, but at the same time, we have to play by the rules. So just know that it's going to be an uphill battle for what they're trying to do on paper. I really don't see it happening. I as a staff recommendation, I'd say let's start the demolition of the property and start from scratch.
They can still utilize the property though, as it sits with just a beer and wine license, so correct?
Yeah, I don't see the motel, being it's a 50% substantial improvement, I don't see the motel doing any remodeling and trying to get back in business. I don't see that. It's in the.
So, but they can just, once they have some of these issues, what you're talking about is a different issue if they want to repurpose the building, but I'm talking about the original bar. But if they just want to use just a regular beer and wine license that they already have, they can
100%.
just go for it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
That's the only question.
So there is a way they could open right now.
With a beer and wine license.
I think.
I think they consider that maybe there's not so much success in that type of business with what you're trying to do. They can go back and go back to what they have, same for same parking, same use, same occupancy load. When they start adding restaurant, 150 people and liquor license, it just changes the whole dynamics of that project.
Because they're grandfathered in as they sit now with the beer and wine on the parking and a lot of these issues, correct?
Right, they're fine the way they are, as long as they don't increase the occupancy load.
So did they have a liquor license before, or was it just beer and wine prior to?
To my knowledge, it was beer and wine. That's to my knowledge, and I'm not saying that's the case, but that's what I've been told.
So the difference is the restaurant. That's what changed the scenario.
The number of, the 4 COP license with the state changes it because the state requires 150 seats and 51% gross food sales to get that liquor license.
Okay.
I don't personally see that kitchen producing that much food.
I understand what you're saying.
The way it lays out.
Okay.
That's right.
Was there any other comment? Because I was going to comment on something else on the old business, but it didn't have to do with this. I didn't want to move off topic if you guys were. Okay. The other thing that I see for old business is you have the status of Clark Moody Boulevards, and that's still under legal review. What I wanted to know, just as a practical matter, is we just voted to do a study on the roads to see which ones we're going to do, which I'm sure will include that. Will the study be done after the legal review? So once the study's done, we'll know what the status is going to be on Clark Moody. Do you know which will be done first?
I don't, excuse me, sorry, Mr. Mayor, I don't know. I know Mr. Matthew and I have been working on the review process. The next step for us is to finish up the actual legal review, and Mr. Matthew will give us an opinion.
Let me make that a little easier, John.
Okay.
That's on. Yeah, you talking about the study they just purchased for $10,000?
No, the Clark Moody on whether or not we own it or.
I know what that issue is, but what study were you planning
The
to do on that?
$13,000 that we
That's
just
the
passed.
10,000, right? The 10 plus 3, yeah. I assure you that they're not going to charge you less or more for Clark Moody on how many miles of street? You're talking about $5.
Yeah.
It's like 19.5 miles an hour.
It's 19.5 miles, and you're talking about 300 feet.
No, I'm talking about the timing, because even if we get the.
No, do you understand what this assessment is? This is, help me if I make a mistake here. This assessment is company we already have software with, is gonna go out and kind of, with sensors, and just look at every street. Okay, and they'll be able to tell by how the street looks. This isn't a real in-depth analysis, say, for $10,000, okay? But with $10,000, they're gonna look at all the streets, and they're gonna assess them, say, this one's got potholes, this one looks like this.
They're gonna grade each one.
They're gonna grade each
you know,
one,
as far as-
I got that, by just looking at it. They're gonna grade it by looking at it. They're not gonna take bore tests or anything. You can see it in here, how they do it, and they're gonna say, that was 40 grand, that was 30 grand. So
Right.
I'm saying is, the Clark Moody issue isn't gonna be affected by that, whether you take, in other words, you're not gonna save $50 if you take them off.
And essentially, you're talking two completely different things.
Yeah, right.
You're talking, one is looking at the physical state of the road, the other is the legal ownership.
Right.
Right.
So really, one doesn't, they really don't have anything to do with each other, other than from what
Yes,
Mr. Matthew pointed out. If you're gonna have somebody do a survey, sure, you can get the survey.
No, the concern was the timing. In other words, if we get the study back, and that's one of the roads that needs to be done, well, by that point, we'll need to have an answer on Clark Moody. Whether or not we'll have the study done by then, because if we want to pave these roads that they make recommendations, we need to know. They're not going to figure it out. We need to know what we can or have to pave and what we don't have to
Okay,
pave.
well, all right, so you wanted, yeah, I can assure you it'll be in the top 5. Just living here.
Right.
And I can tell you this, we got in last night late, and I'm probably 80% through it, the title searches. I highly doubt that there's a plat there. So I highly doubt that we have a legal duty to pay the street. I'm 90% there. Matter of fact, so I can give you a full conclusion, I'm still waiting on the city to give me proof that we've actually done any work there, okay? And wait a while on that. So I can tell you what your options are, but it doesn't look like there's going to be a plat there. And if there's no plat, we have no legal duty to pave. Okay, so I'm 90% of the way there. A couple other things I want to look at, but I've checked all the parcels there. They've been working off ingress, egress. There's the closest plat is to the, let's see here. The closest plat would be to the west, I guess, and that would be Pine Hill, which is the portion of Leo Kidd, which is right here, right in that big shop in Brush Pile. There's a Pine Hill plat there, and it used to be called Madison Street. It's now the Leo Kidd. These parcels were very long, and what happened was someone was putting an industrial park, because that was to be placed down as a plat. It was never recorded, and so what happened is that plat doesn't have any roadways on that edge of it, what would I guess be the eastern edge of it, so we can't create a plat. The fact that a city maintains a road, let's presume the city has maintained the road, and I think they have, whether we have records or not, would mean something. So if the city maintains a road and there's no plat, well, there's other areas in the city like this, by the way, I happen to know where a couple of them are. The city maintains road and there's no plat. The city has a choice. They can stop maintaining the road. They can keep doing the same thing you've been doing, okay? Or you can survey the road and then place certain language upon the survey and file the survey with the recorder's office. Once you do that, it becomes your road. And that gives people opportunities to object. Well, I don't want you on that road. It's in front of my house. I like that. And you're gonna say, well, why would anybody do that? It usually happens in scenarios where the road is between someone's house and the beach. You understand me? That person doesn't want you getting that road, okay? But there's a lot of case law on it. So the city could do that. Now, if we most likely, and I presume we have some proof we maintain the roads, okay, that's free of us to do. But if you wanted to do that, okay, but you don't have to do that in any way, shape, or form. And then it's totally, there's ingress, egress for utilities as well as getting just regular ingress and regress. It's about 20 feet wide and everybody's deep from one end to the other.
So we'll have this before the other study's done, I'm hoping, that's what I was getting at, so we can have some of these issues hammered out by the time they come back and tell us it needs to be paved.
I guess if you want to look at it that way, you're going to get every street on that.
Right.
Yeah, this will be number 1 or 2, I would.
Well, this is going to be recommended paved.
Yeah,
I've been out there,
it'll
so-
be 1 or 2, but then we say we don't have to fix it because it's not our street.
And keep in mind, I highly doubt, and Sal, you could correct me, but they're going to do it anyway. You're not going to tell. They're not going to know what I know. I know where the other 5 places in the city are where there's unplatted roads, but you're going to get those too. You see what I mean? You're gonna get them all. You're gonna get every single thing that looks like a street. They're not gonna do legal research on every street. That's my point.
They're not doing anything.
Yeah, you see what I'm saying? So they're gonna do it anyway.
They're not doing anything legal. They're just
gonna look at where there's a
they
street.
analyze the streets, and
Yeah.
they're basically going off Pasco County's recommend.
No, I get that. We're gonna have to figure out the legal implications of whether or not we have to.
Yeah, we can check. I can tell you for a fact that where the fishing pier is, what road is that? Limestone. That's limestone. When limestone comes up to the fishing pier, that's unplatted. I know that because I researched it for an issue with the county recently. That's an unplatted road. We just take care of it, okay? And that same issue exists there, and it exists in other places in the city. It's not unusual. I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, I think if you went back far enough, that was state land or something.
So it went all the way back to where I could see where, because the county just purchased that property there on the water, and they wanted to know if the city would formally do that process of engineering. I said, well, it's a council decision. They bought it anyway, but they know it's an unplatted street. Okay, I don't know if that helps or not. It gets kind of really complicated, but that answers a few questions about why the building there, what Whiskey River kind of portion of it kind of sits over into the street. It's unplatted. You understand me? It's unplatted.
Just to add, we're pending approval tonight. I'm about 8 weeks out from deployment.
That's what I was trying to get at.
Yes.
So you got 2 months before we're gonna be.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's gonna,
Okay.
I have 2 months within the deployment time. They said so. It's like an 8-week time frame.
Okay.
So they might come sooner, but they said within 2 months.
Okay. So that answered my question in really good detail. I didn't know if anyone had any follow-up.
No, I'm 90% there. I was always curious, a little hesitant to say, but I'm not going to find a plat there. And we've got 70, 80 pages the other day, and a couple other things I want to check, but I suspected as much. It was an industrial park. Did you bring that up? Yeah. And it seems pretty clear.
Thank you. Is there any other old business?
No.
Okay. I believe that's all the old business. We're looking for motion.
Motion adjourned.
Second.
All in favor?
All right.